Hey, what's going on, Cubs fans? This is Cole Wright from Marquee Sports Network, and you're listening to my guy Kyle Stanley on the Setup Man.
Cole, Wright, what's up, man? I'm excited for this one. This will be a good conversation, and glad that you're healthy now.
Yeah,
So you had to make a little run to the Cubs clubhouse and the trainer. That wasn't expected for you, huh?
yeah, Doc Grizz, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Made a few calls, and I had to get a golf cart from the back of Marquee to the side door of Wrigley, and then they had to put me in a wheelchair. My back seized up because I put my socks on the other morning. I guess that's what happens when you get old. It feels like a water balloon.
It doesn't even have to wait
Burst
until you're old. I was like 26, 27 the first time I threw out my back, and it was from picking up trash in my front yard. So
Yeah,
it happens to us all.
that's how it happens.
Cole, man, it's an honor having you on. I like to think you're kind of the king of the quip. Like you, anytime I listen to you on Marquee, I'm like, man, that guy's got a saying for everything. Where did that come from? Is that a family thing? Is that just something you picked up as you grew up? Like, where does that come from?
I guess that's just me. I feel like the way my goofball brain works, man. It's triggers. Like I feel like if one word will make me think of something else, which will make me think of something else, which will make me think of that movie, which makes me think of that TV show, which makes me think of someone that we went to school with in seventh grade who got me kicked out of class for laughing about that TV show. So uh, I try to have a kind of a deep knowledge on everything. I mean, if that makes any kind of sense, I'm a Jeopardy fanatic. I like to
There you
sit
go.
even when rain delay the other day, sat in the newsroom and put on 3 episodes of Jeopardy that I had on DVR, which I hadn't been able to catch up with.
There
So
you go.
we would sit around, and I was always a big Saturday Night Live guy,
Yeah, there you
still
go.
would. If Michael Che ever needs a day off and wants me to sit in and do Weekend Update or Colin Jost, whoever, I'll gladly fill in.
Hey, back in the day, the Dana Carvey days, Chris Farley, that was my time.
Dennis Miller, yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
but hey, before we get too far off topic, I do want to get to Cubs talk, but
mhm,
I want to just take a step back for a second. And I see you on Twitter, I see you on the desk, and I see this guy that comes in. It doesn't even look like you have any off days. Like you're on the desk almost every single day. And then I also see you've got family, you've got your daughter who's playing softball. How tough is that, man? Just like the balance of family and work when it comes to 162 games in a year and the job demands that you have.
I mean, it can be tough, but I also
Yeah.
you have to prioritize and look at things, kind of with a glass half full perspective,
Mm,
because think about all the time that I do actually get to have off and the time that
yeah.
I do get to work with my daughter, and whether it's with her schoolwork or her softball or whatever it may be. There's so much family time in the off season, and when you think about it, I always say to them, like, and other people, all my buddies, I'm like, hey, how's your off season? Like, that's 2 days a week, which are called Saturday and Sunday,
Right.
and they never get off. So, I think about like the large chunks of time and being blessed and privileged enough to be able to go take vacations with the girls, my wife and my daughter, and bring my parents along. So, having that off time it makes it a lot easier. But I think the girls know because my wife, she played softball growing up. My daughter plays softball. I think they understand like how
Mhm.
how baseball works, and they know that sometimes I get home a little later, so my daughter might stay up a little later. She might
Yeah.
go to sleep a little later than your average 12-year-old, but that's here nor there.
Hey, well,
So they know I'm going to be home.
you said you're glass half full on that, and you can tell on the broadcast you're a glass half full kind of guy. But man, um, transitioning to yesterday's game, I got to tell you, Kyle Hendricks with the ball.
Hmm.
First of all, didn't I wasn't glass half full about that game. It was Mother's Day, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to put myself in a bad mood. I want to be with my wife. And then suddenly it's the 10th inning, and I look over my phone, and they're up 4-2, and I'm like, okay, wait, maybe I should watch the end of it. And then Adbert comes in, gives up the 2-run homer. There wasn't much glass half full for me yesterday until the actual final pitch.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a big one for them, especially starting with Atlanta. What did you see yesterday?
You- I saw a team that was down to fight. I know they didn't.
Yeah.
There's a large gap in their scoring, but I was goof around and say, never on schedule, but always on time. And like for this team to have that grit and that fight down the stretch, we were sitting there, Ryan Sweeney and I, watching Patrick Wisdom, and I'm like, man, if he just gets one right down the middle. I know you could say that about Patrick Wisdom in any at bat, but sure enough, and that was the perfect scenario for him to come in and put his fingerprints on that ball game. And I think it was a complete group effort. And it's tough to watch Adbert struggle right now.
Yeah.
I had conversations with Adbert down in spring training, and I was a zero rate closer once upon a time. So I was asking him closer type questions. I asked him
Mhm.
because he in Mesa he looked bigger, he looked thicker,
Okay.
and I asked him. I said, "Did you train this offseason like a closer?" And he said, "I didn't train any different, but I
Mm.
trained. He ate a lot of lean meat and made sure he paid close attention to his diet." And he said, even though he's a closer now, he still pitches with that starter mentality. And he wants to get that ground ball out to Dansby. He wants a quick fly ball to Happer. And I feel like his game plan was so ironclad entering the season,
Mm.
but it just hasn't really panned out for him, which is so tough to watch because he is one of those good guys. And when a guy is someone that you like to talk with, and someone who you see that interacts with fans, and they just seem like a good guy, you want to root for them just that much more. You want them to succeed. And Adbert's one of those guys. The whole Cubs team is pretty much full of cats like that. And to see him struggle and to not really be able to pinpoint it,
Right.
that's one of the biggest concerns. And that's the toughest thing to watch, because I know when he's going good, we saw it last year. I mean, what, 25 save opportunities, 23
Yeah.
saves he nailed down. So I mean, this year,
20 in a row.
I mean, yeah, he's
Yeah.
given up 6 home runs. That leads all MLB relievers. I mean, that's not a category that he wanted to top at the beginning of the season, or the end of the season for that matter. So to get him back on track, not only will it be beneficial for him, I mean,
Right.
it'll be huge for this team, because like we said, when he's going good, he's good.
That's really interesting because there's been a lot of talk about that on the broadcast with Boog and JD, right? Where it's like, hey, you get to 0-2, you get ahead, get out of that starter's mentality, make guys chase. Like let's get out of the strike zone a little bit. So for you to say, hey, he still has that starter's mentality, it kind of gives affirmation to what they've been talking about, what fans have been seeing. So my question is, have you talked to him since the beginning of the season? And do you see him changing that mentality in order to get back to what he was last year?
I have not spoken with him about that. We were on the field
Yeah.
last Friday, and just walked by him real quick, and just gave him a pound and just said what's up, essentially. And he seemed to be in good spirits, and that's pretty good. That's a good indicator that at least mentally he's on
Yeah.
the right track. I mean, whether if he's putting up a shield or not. I mean, I know if I wasn't going good, and I had outings that continued to stack up, that that
Right.
weren't to my liking, you know, it's probably a fault of mine, but I probably wouldn't be the easiest guy to be around.
Yeah.
I'm not the easiest cat to be around if I'm having a bad round of golf, and I'm not even good at golf. So I already know, like, how I'm wired. So for him to be able to be out there and be loose and carefree still, and go out there and work on what he needs to work on, like, that's extremely commendable.
Well, and you look at this whole adverse situation, and I hate to put the kind of pressure on the guy, but the domino effect that it's had in this bullpen has been really detrimental. I mean, yes, injuries, right? Merriweather is down. Now you got Palencia down. Now you got Almonte, who was finally getting into a
Yeah.
groove. And that's been the story of the season. And somehow this team is still just half a game behind first place. But aside from that, when Aber went down as the closer to now a project, essentially, you now have Neris, who was not exactly thriving, having to come in and be the closer
Hmm.
instead of a seventh or eighth inning guy. You've had to have Mark Leiter step up, and now he's pitched just about half as many innings as games as the Cubs have played.
Yeah.
And it's just put so much stress on this bullpen that already is not at top peak. And all fans, including myself, just keep on saying, well, maybe Ben Brown is the answer closer. Maybe they need to call up Cade Horton sooner. Maybe they need to, put Wisniewski in the bullpen or Assad in the bullpen or whatever. There's so many different things. What do you see aside from health, right? Like, because health will change it all. But aside from health, what is the potential to fix this bullpen?
I just think it's guys having those defined roles,
Yeah.
and with the injuries, it's tough to
Hmm.
to look at a guy and give him an actual definition. I don't think anyone really knows right now because
Yeah.
there is so much that's in flux. And we had Hayden Wisniewski on the show, and he said the one thing that he tries to do is just stick to whatever routine works for him. Whether if he's starting, he has a starting routine. If he's relieving, he has a relieving routine. And I feel like that's one thing that's really jumped off the page for him with his success so far this season. And he also leaned into the fact that he said that he and Javier Assad are on very similar career trajectories. And
Hmm.
what we've seen from Javier Assad since, a season ago has been, I mean, lights out, one of the best pitchers
Amazing.
in all
Yeah.
of baseball. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Hayden, when he realizes his potential, which he seemingly has so far this season, that he could be a problem out there on the hill. And we've seen that he's been real stingy. I mean, his ERA is, he's not, I don't think he's there when it comes to qualifier innings yet, but
Right.
once he's there, he's going to be in that mix, and you're going to see a whole bunch of Cubs that have their name up there on that list. And Jameson Taillon, once everything, he's going to get the start on Tuesday versus the Braves. Once he gets the qualified innings, he's going to be right there too, because his numbers are off the hook as well. I mean, and then you have Shota Imanaga. So I think the starting pitching has made it a little bit easier for Craig
Yeah.
to manage the bullpen, because if think about if the starting pitching could only go, 2 2 2/3, 3 1/3, and then you had to tap into all these guys way earlier than planned, because I think there's probably only been 3 games this year where the bullpen has covered less than 3 innings. I mean, they've worked every single game. So,
Yeah.
tip of the cap to Craig and his managerial skills, because it's not easy to try to navigate those waters, and especially night in and night out. 16 games in 16 days. I mean, that's a treacherous stretch. So for those guys to be able to go out there and be able to piece together some wins, you wanted to see them win the game 2 versus Pittsburgh. You would have liked to see a sweep, because you know that you need to sweep teams like this when you finish a game back of the Arizona Diamondbacks a season ago, and you were so close.
Right.
And once again, it goes back to Adbert getting hurt. I feel like last season, with Adbert getting hurt and Jamer getting hurt, that took the wind out of the sails. That's when everyone started hitting it with body shots, and then you started losing to Arizona, and it seemed like it was an insurmountable task to try to claw back into that race. But I feel like where they're at right now, as opposed to last year, like last year at the 40-game mark, they were 2 games under 500.
Yeah. They had hit
This
a
year,
bad May.
6 games above 500 at the 40-game mark. So with all the injuries and all the question marks still, I mean, and who's to say that the Cubs aren't going to be early buyers? With this team in contention with Milwaukee making noise, this is a very winnable division. And not only is it a winnable division, but this is a team that they string together good at bats. They drive up pitch counts. They do everything that needs to be done to go out there and win ball games. And if pitching wouldn't have had a hiccup here or there, we could see some different results. They could be 2 or 3 games in the lead in the Central. I mean,
Yep.
but then again, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we know how that one goes. But when you have that potential and you have a team with so much grit, and then you look at, okay, if we would have done this much more in that game, and Craig Counsell is one of the best managers all time in one-run games, top 5 all time in one-run ball games. So he's going to be able to get you across that finish line more times than not. And that's one thing that the Cubs struggled with last year. They struggled with it a little bit this year, but you're seeing them trend in the right direction. So I don't know. I think Craig is up to that challenge. He's that taskmaster. He says, how can I make my team the best with the roster that I have here right now? And I think we'll see that.
Going back to yesterday, Kyle Hendricks, finally a good start. What did you see
Mhm.
different from him yesterday compared to the other starts from this year?
It seemed as if his misses were middle away, and we talked about it every single time. We talked about it with JD, talked about it with Ryan Sweeney, talked about it with Doug Glanville, Joe Girardi, Cliff Floyd, Carlos Pena. Every single time he was out there, before every start, guys, if he's going to miss, he can't miss middle in, right?
Right.
And they would agree. I mean, and when you throw 88 miles an hour to 89, and I don't think he's thrown one pitch 90 miles an hour this year, and it's not where you want to be, because his game is deception and keeping guys out front off balance. And when they're looking 88, and when you're just going fastball changeup, and then there's only like the line of demarcation between those two pitches velocity wise is only 6 miles an hour.
Right.
Major league hitters, to them, that looks exactly the same. When they see that, it's in their crosshairs, 88 or 82, they both look slow. So if you miss middle in, they can even get beat and still go opposite field, which we've seen a lot this season. I mean, Kyle with the home runs, I mean, I think it's now 9 that he's given up, but to see him limit that home run and
Yeah.
keep it a solo, that's fine. I mean, he issued 4 walks yesterday, I believe, and it didn't come back to bite him. And that's the one thing, he missed middle away. And when he misses middle away, he has guys walking back to the dugout scratching their head. Like, I thought that was supposed to be a comfortable at bat. Like, what just happened there? This should be a ring and double, a gap splitter, but instead, it was either a punch or a ground ball or a weak fly ball.
I think one of the things that has been tremendously in the Cubs' favor this year is that they've caught teams at the right time. You think about the Astros, right? Sweeping the Astros, banged up majorly. If you played the Pirates in the beginning of this year, it might have been a different situation than what we just saw this last weekend. A lot of that kind of stuff. And the Braves, even though they're winning basically 2 out of 3 games, you look at the numbers and this offense is not clicking aside from Marcell Ozuna. Like, that guy is playing MVP baseball. Everyone else, you got Olsen batting under 200. Now Austin Riley looks like he's hurt. Acuna only has 3 home runs this year. Their starting pitching has been out of this world, pretty much, a lot like the Cubs. And
without Spencer Strider.
And again, kind of the same as the Cubs, right? Without Justin Steele until recently. But tonight you have Shota against, he's not qualified right now, but he's basically the number 3 ERA leader, Ronaldo Lopez. I think you look at this series, it's going to be some strong pitching matchups. B, I think the Cubs are getting the Braves at the right time. And C, I think
Miss Elder pitched last night.
Yeah, I think it's a winnable series. I don't like this series in September last year. I like this series more in May of this year. What do you think? What's the keys going into this series for you?
Strong pitching. I mean, it sounds cliche, but if you can neutralize, I mean, Marcell Ozuna is leading the league in RBIs right now. So if you can keep runners off the base paths and limit his production, then that's going to be one step in the right direction. And missing certain guys, with no Spencer Strider, you're gonna miss Cal. I think that works out in the Cubs' favor, and I think you just have to take advantage. I mean, that's the ups and downs of 162. I mean, do you catch teams when they're hot, or do you catch them at the right time, or are you the team that they caught at the wrong time? That's kind of how I like to look at it, because when you're playing well, when you look at your schedule and you think, oh man, like, you got Pittsburgh, but then you have Atlanta. But you want to be playing at a level where Atlanta's like, oh man, like the Cubs are coming to town. This isn't going to be easy. Right now, with the Cubs haven't dropped back-to-back series. There's only one of 3 teams that hasn't done that, the Yankees and the Orioles. So I know the Braves know that they're going to have their hands full with this team. And I know that if they walk into tonight's ball game thinking, oh, Shota Imanaga, his numbers look good against everybody else, but he hasn't faced the Atlanta Braves, it's going to be a long day for them. I mean, Shota could go 8. I mean, I would love to see him go CG on him, but I mean, how many complete games are we going to see in Major League Baseball this year? 10, maybe. I would probably go with the under.
So, interesting question for you. Do you think that the Braves play another montage of Acuna? No, I'm just kidding. My actual question is, do you think that Seiya has, knowing what you know about him and being around him, obviously a lot of that probably through his translator, but do you think that there's a level of PTSD that he has on this series from last year? Or do you think he's a guy that says, no, it's my time to go in and show what I can really do?
That game last year where he dropped that fly ball, that game wasn't won or lost on one play. And I feel like so many people always think that, like, oh man, I mean, was it a hinge point? Yes. Baseball games, people, are not won or lost on one play. Yeah. Like, it's a culmination. Like, you play 9 innings. There's 27 outs that you need to get to put a game in the books as a complete one. So, and if you go back and watch that game, Ronald Acuna Jr. missed a fly ball in right field as well in the exact same game, and that dude's all world. So there's no shame in that. I mean, think about it. If Seiya Suzuki wouldn't have done what he did the whole second half of the season, they wouldn't even have been in that position. So
100%.
for anyone who wants to blame him for that, like, tell me you don't know a whole bunch about baseball without telling me you don't know a whole bunch about baseball.
Yeah.
So Seiya Suzuki, I mean, I think he'll be just fine, man. Like, he's a gamer. Gamers they don't let little things like that bring them down. All they're thinking about is the next big accomplishment. So I think that's where his mindset's at.
I love it. And honestly, you see all the things from last year and just basically what you said, right? Show me that you don't know a lot about baseball without telling me you don't know a lot about baseball. So many different things that I saw that were like, oh, if he catches that ball, the Cubs go to the playoffs and the Braves don't. I'm like, actually, no, then they would have been tied with
That's
the Diamondbacks, and
sure.
then the Diamondbacks would have had the tiebreaker. And oh, by the way, the
Hmm.
Cubs did not have anyone to go into the ninth inning that was a confident closer. So there's so many things that all the fans always want to make a bigger deal out of what really happened, but at the end of the day, like Seiya's in a position right now that he's coming off the IL. He's had some good swings. It looked like I guess that's a good question. You saw that little tweak that he had in that at
Yeah.
bat yesterday. That worries me a little bit, and I couldn't tell if that was the same side, a different side. What did you end up seeing from that?
Well, the main thing I saw was on Saturday versus Schemes, and then he ended up being all right. I
Yeah,
was even saying, like, "Man, maybe wanted to stay on the shelf." I mean, I know he was activated on Friday, just it maybe procedural because Craig didn't want to call a guy up and then send him back down, and then this the travel issues and whatnot. So I'm like, maybe he wanted to sit out until Sunday, but he ended up getting 2 knocks on Saturday. But if I'm coming back from an oblique, I'm going to be honest with you. The last dude I want to see is Paul Skeens.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
like, hey, here you go. Try to time up this grain of sand as he
Yeah,
throws it right by you, with an oblique, and try to pull the trigger on that. So, um, I mean, I think he's going to be fine. I think if there was an issue that they would have addressed it, he would have pulled back after Saturday, and everything would have been fine. I think we'll know more, ahead of first pitch today, which obviously is Monday, and I think Seiya's going to be all right. You do have to monitor an oblique. Like, I'm sitting here talking like I'm Dr. James Andrews. This is a stethoscope. Not These aren't headphones. But I mean, I would imagine, whether you're you're swinging a bat or a golf club or even throwing, like, all of it starts in your core, and it starts with the side that you pull down or go towards the ball with. And for Seiya, keeping that oblique where it needs to be,
yeah.
and healthy. Anything that needs to be done, if he has to take a day here or there, we need him towards the back end of the season. Because, like we said, when Adbert went down and when Jamer went down, that's when the Cubs ship went down last season.
Yeah. Well, and I was a little bit surprised. I think Steele was pretty much on pace with what we expected about 4 or 5 weeks
Hmm.
after the injury. Bellinger, the fracture, I mean, all the research you do, it says minimum month, more likely to be closer to 2 months, and he's back in like less than 15 days. And then Seiya, they were saying, oh, he's still about 2 weeks behind Cody. Well, he only ended up being 2 days behind
Yeah.
Cody. And I'm just kind of like, are we rushing these guys back because the offense and because the team is so banged up? And is that going to have, an effect later on in the season because they're not going to be at 100%? That's the only worry that I have, Cole.
Yeah. I think, especially with what both of an oblique and then essentially an oblique with cracked ribs. Like, I
Yeah,
think that they wouldn't rush that just to be like, okay, we need to win these games, right? Because, like we said,
right.
they were 2 games, 40 games in, they were 2 games below 500, and at 40 game mark this year, they were 6 games above. So I don't think that there was the sense of urgency already. All right, guys, we have to push all the chips into the middle of the table. Let's go right now. You have to come back, because that could be detrimental to the team in the long haul. And I mean, as cliche as that sounds, baseball is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like, so let's get these guys healthy and make sure that they're ready to go. And I don't think Cody or Seiya would have come back or rushed back if they weren't going to be able to contribute. And that's what we've seen from both of those cats. I mean, specifically with Cody. I mean, that guy's come back. I feel like, as much as it stinks, what we saw last year, he got hurt, came back, and just ripped the ears off pitchers' heads. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what we need to see every season. Like just a slight ding from Cody, and when he comes back, he's all world. No, not seriously, but
Hey, but in all seriousness, you did jinx Cody. I mean, you're the reason, Cole.
we had that a Cubs season ticket holder event in the 1914 suite at Wrigley the day that the Houston Astros came back to town. I said to Cody, I said, "Hey man, like last time, you faced the Astros, you got hurt in Houston and you were out." And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to do my best to stay away from the wall." And then
Sure
he
enough.
proceeded to not do his best to stay away from the wall.
Oh
Thanks for
man.
that one, Cody. Thanks for putting me on
Yeah,
blast.
exactly.
That
You
was
need to go see what are those called? Sharmas?
uh,
Get back in the right juju.
I need to go see Miss Cleo. Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
there you
That's what I
go.
need to go see.
There you go. We're gonna jump to our 27th out rapid fire. I'm gonna dish about 5 or 6 questions your way,
All right.
and just first thing that comes to mind, we're gonna try to nail this in about 30 seconds. You ready,
Okay.
Cole?
Yep.
All right. I can hear it all the time on the broadcast. You're a big Anchorman fan, but what's your favorite movie? A, and B, favorite movie to quote?
Maybe I go Anchorman.
Anchorman on both?
Yeah. Favorite movie to Coming to America.
Okay. There
Yeah.
you go. I like it.
Mhm.
I like it. Hey, you're formerly with the NFL Network. Who's your
Mhm.
football team?
The Bears. I mean, I'm from Chicago, but working
There you
for
go.
the NFL Network, I feel like you don't have a team. Like you're impartial. So I feel
Mhm.
like for so long I was impartial, and with Caleb Williams, I mean, you have to have a reason to cheer.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Lot to cheer about right now in
Mhm.
Chicago. Who's the best dressed co-anchor that you've worked with at Marquee?
I'm gonna. I don't want to say Cliff because if I said that, that would give him satisfaction of me saying something positive about him. Cliff's my guy. I would say Dexter, but Dexter doesn't put together his own outfits. That's the thing. So he,
Okay.
Dexter's he
He
lives a
outsources
privileged
that.
life, man. He's got a company that puts together outfits. They just send them his way. So since Cliff, I know puts his stuff together and he borrows my ties a lot, I'm gonna go with Cliff.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite baseball player growing up?
Oh my! Uh, Andre Dawson and Ricky Henderson. The first
Okay.
number I could ever pick was number 8, and Ricky Henderson is dope. He's Ricky Henderson, man. He's born in the back of an Oldsmobile on Christmas Day in Chicago. How much doesn't get any better than that?
I love it.
The most unbreakable record in baseball history.
Oh,
I stand by that one.
yeah. That's not breaking.
Yeah.
Even with Acuna in the league, that's not being broken.
You have to steal 1,000 bases, which nobody's done, and then steal 406 more. You have to stay healthy for over 20 seasons and steal like
Wow.
71 bags a season. No one's gonna
It's
catch
wild.
it.
All right, I've got a doozy for you to end this. If you could trade places with anyone in the Cubs organization, I'm talking about front office, coaches, players, media, anyone in the entire organization, who would it be and why?
What do you have to trade places with them, or could you just work side by side with them?
How about we can
And you could
simplify it?
share
You can even just
share a title. Like
be them for a day.
if I could have a fourth floor office with Carter and Jed, and
Okay.
maybe every once in a while just interject and be like, hey guys, what do you think about how about this? What about that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I think I know more. I like to think I know more about baseball than I really do. But I'd like to also think that every once in a while, my opinion has a little bit of weight. I mean,
There you go.
I always
I
tell
like
people,
it.
like even like my daughter, like I didn't win a contest to get my job. I kind of know a little something about it.
And you do it well.
Thank
Last
you.
question, brother. Our final out question. Cubs are on pace right now, quote unquote on pace. Gotta love that term. For 95 wins. Over under.
I'm going to say under, but
Okay.
I'm still going to say that they win the division with 93 wins.
Okay. Close enough.
Yeah, I like that. That's 93 wins is a lot of wins, man. I'll
That's
tell
a
you,
lot.
95 sounds generous.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
it's gonna get tough here. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of good teams, a lot of tough battles fought. So I'm gonna
93
go
wins.
93.
That's 10 more than last year. And I like that
Mhm.
estimate. Cole Wright, man, from Marquee, guys. I mean, obviously, you know who Cole is, but go check him out on Twitter. Go check him out on the pregame shows. Make sure you're tuning in to watch all of his his stuff before and after the games. You make it a joy, man. I appreciate you being on here on the Setup Man podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it, man. And great meeting you and your family when you came by. Next time you get out to Wrigley, man, stop by again.
Let's do it.